Only one came back from the tunnel. It was supposed to be just another adventure. 4 friends, one tunnel, and a night full of excitement. They had heard stories about the place, an old, abandoned railway tunnel hidden deep in the forest, where no train had passed for years. Some locals said it was haunted, others said it was just dangerous. But like most stories, people never believed them until they saw it for themselves. That night, the group decided to go in, laughing, recording everything on their phones, teasing each other along the way. The air inside the tunnel was cold, damp, and carried a strange stillness, like time had frozen. They didn't think twice. It was just a tunnel, or so they thought. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as they walked deeper into the darkness. The signal on their phones vanished, and so did the sound of their footsteps echoing behind them. Something felt off, but no one wanted to admit it. They tried to keep the mood light, but uneasiness was growing. Then suddenly the laughter stopped. One by one, the friends began to fall silent, until only one voice remained. That's the voice you're about to hear. Because only one came back from the tunnel. What happened inside remains a mystery. No bodies were found, no traces left behind. Just one shaken soul, who refuses to ever go near that forest again. His story hasn't been shared publicly until now. What he remembers will chill you. What he saw, he still can't fully explain. Before we begin, remember, some tunnels lead to the unknown, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. So sit tight, because this is not just a story, this is a true story. His name is Aman. Just an ordinary guy, early 20s, quiet by nature, but always down for a little thrill with his closest friends. That night, it was him, Zaid, Haris, and Denial, friends since school, always exploring places most people avoided. They had gone on late-night drives before, camped in empty fields, even snuck into a few abandoned buildings for fun. But the tunnel was different. Aman had heard about it from his cousin, an old railway tunnel just outside the city, shut down years ago after a landslide. People avoided it. They said strange sounds came from it at night. Some claimed they'd seen flickering lights deep inside, even though the tunnel had no power. Of course, none of them believed in all that. Ghost stories were just part of the thrill, right? So they packed up snacks, flashlights, and a small speaker for music, and headed out around 10 p.m. The drive itself felt exciting. Winding roads, fading streetlights, and that sense of doing something just a little risky. By the time they reached the entrance, it was nearly pitch dark. The tunnel stood like a giant mouth carved into the hill, its inside swallowed in shadow. They joked around, took a few selfies, and finally stepped in. At first, it was just fun. Echoes bouncing, voices laughing, flashlights casting weird shadows on the walls. They walked slowly, making silly videos and pretending to be ghost hunters. Aman remembers Haris saying, "Imagine if we're not alone in here," and they all laughed it off. But a few minutes in, things began to shift. The air got colder. The silence became heavier. The tunnel seemed to stretch longer than expected. And somewhere, deep in the dark ahead, they heard something. A scrape. Then a whisper. Then nothing. They paused, looked at each other. No one spoke. The music on the speaker glitched for a second and stopped. That's when Denial nervously asked if they should turn back. But Zaid, always the brave one, pushed ahead. "Come on, we didn't drive all this way to turn back now." So they kept going. Aman says it was around that point, maybe 10 or 15 minutes in, when he realized he couldn't hear their footsteps anymore. Only his own. He turned around, and they were gone. At first, Aman thought it was a joke. Maybe the guys had hidden behind one of the tunnel's side walls, or turned off their lights to mess with him. They'd done things like that before, scaring each other during camping trips, or sneaking up behind one another just for reaction. So he called out, half laughing, "Very funny, Zaid. Come out." But there was no answer. Just silence. And not the kind you get when things are quiet, but the kind that presses down on you like the air itself is listening. He started walking back slowly, flashing his light around. The tunnel looked the same in every direction. Stone walls, rusted rails, dripping water. No sign of them. No sound of footsteps. No voices. He reached the spot where they'd all been standing together just moments earlier, but it felt empty. Cold. As if no one had been there at all. That's when something strange hit him. His flashlight flickered, even though the batteries were brand new. And the tunnel, it didn't feel like it was just empty. It felt like it was aware, as if something inside it had woken up. He heard what sounded like faint breathing, close but impossible to place. He spun around, heart racing, shouting for the others. Still nothing. Back in town, Denial's sister had warned them not to go. She had heard stories from old workers who used to operate the trains before the line shut down. They spoke of a section deep in the tunnel, where the walls seemed to shift, where people felt lost, even if they hadn't moved. Aman had laughed at it at the time. Now it didn't seem so funny. Meanwhile, Zaid's phone, left outside in the car, started ringing. It was a call from Horace's number, even though Horace didn't have signal inside. The phone lit up, buzzed once, and then went dark. When they checked the logs later, there was no call recorded. Inside the tunnel, Aman kept walking, shouting, shaking. Every step felt heavier. He began to wonder if he was walking in circles. The tracks below his feet looked the same. His mind was spinning. He hadn't seen an exit or opening in over 20 minutes. Then suddenly he saw a light. Just a flicker. Deep ahead. He thought maybe, just maybe, someone was still there. Aman stared at the flicker of light ahead. It was faint, almost like the glow of a dying phone screen, or maybe a reflection. He didn't know what it was exactly, but it was the only thing that broke the endless darkness, and in that moment, he didn't care what it meant. He just needed to see something human. He picked up his pace, ignoring the chill in the air and the strange sound of his own breath bouncing off the walls. As he moved toward it, the light vanished. Gone in a blink. He stopped, heart pounding in his ears, trying to convince himself it was just his mind playing tricks. Maybe his flashlight had hit a piece of metal or glass. Maybe he was imagining things. But then, just as suddenly, the light came back. This time behind him. He whipped around. Nothing. The silence was getting louder. That was the only way he could explain it. His footsteps didn't echo anymore, like the tunnel was swallowing every sound. Even the dripping water had stopped. That's when Aman realized something that made his chest tighten. He could no longer feel the ground beneath him. He looked down. The tracks were still there, but it felt like walking on something hollow, like the surface was no longer solid. His legs felt weak. He called out again, this time not to joke, not out of fear, but pure desperation. Zaid. Horace. Denial. His voice cracked. Still no answer. Then came the whisper. It wasn't loud. In fact, it was barely there. But it was close. Very close. Like someone was standing just over his shoulder. He turned, expecting to see one of them playing a prank, but there was no one. Just the tunnel stretching on forever. He felt like something was watching him, following him, even though he couldn't hear it move. His flashlight dimmed again, blinking once, then holding steady. That's when he noticed something etched into the wall next to him. Scratches. Deep, frantic marks. Like someone had tried to claw their way out. His hand trembled as he moved the light across the stone. There were letters. Faint, but visible. Help. He staggered back. This wasn't a prank. Someone had been here before. Maybe more than once. A sudden thud echoed from behind him. He turned quickly, light shaking in his hand. Nothing. Then another. Closer this time. His heart raced. It sounded like footsteps, but too heavy to be any of his friends. Not fast, but slow, deliberate. Like whatever was back there didn't need to hurry. Aman began walking faster, trying to stay calm, but it wasn't working. He felt like he was being pulled deeper into something. Every direction looked the same. His sense of time was gone. His sense of distance gone too. He wasn't sure how long he had been inside now. 30 minutes? An hour? The footsteps behind him kept getting closer. And then he heard it, a voice. But it wasn't his friend's. It was his own. Whispering his name. Aman froze. His body locked up like he'd hit ice. That voice, it wasn't possible. It had whispered his name in the exact tone he used, the exact rhythm. Like someone had recorded him, and was playing it back. Aman, it came again, softer now but closer. He spun around in a panic, light jerking wildly against the tunnel walls. Still no one. Nothing. Just cold stone, rusted tracks, and shadows that didn't stay still. His breathing got heavier. He could hear his heart in his ears. He wanted to run, but his legs weren't moving the way they should. It felt like his body was reacting slower than his thoughts, like time around him had started stretching. Then he heard something else. Not a whisper this time, but a faint hum, like a low, distant vibration. It was coming from inside the tunnel deep ahead. The floor under his feet trembled for just a second. That's when a memory hit him. Something Denial had joked about earlier in the car, half laughing. What if the tunnel never shut down? What if something else took it over? They all laughed at the time. But now, with that strange humming sound growing louder, Aman didn't feel like laughing. He pushed forward, hoping to find any kind of sign, maybe a light, maybe a way out. But what he found instead made his stomach drop. There was a phone lying on the tracks. Horace's phone. The screen was cracked, flashlight still faintly blinking. He picked it up and saw the camera app open, still recording. Hands shaking, he tapped the gallery. There were videos. The last one had been recorded just minutes ago. He played it. The video was dark, voices echoing softly. He could hear Zaid joking, Denial laughing nervously, and Horace whispering something about hearing footsteps. Then suddenly, the video cut to black. But the audio kept playing. There were screams, sharp, panicked, and then a loud metallic dragging sound. The last thing heard was Horace saying, "It's behind us," before the video ended. Aman dropped the phone. Just then, that same dragging sound echoed in the tunnel. But this time, it wasn't coming from the video. It was real, and it was right behind him. He turned and saw something that stopped his breath. A dark shape moving at the far edge of his flashlight's reach, not walking, but gliding. It had no clear form, no face. Just a silhouette darker than the dark around it. It didn't make sense, but it was there. And it was moving closer. Then the second twist hit him, something he hadn't noticed before. The tunnel walls were no longer made of stone. They were different now. Warped, shifting, almost breathing. Like the tunnel itself wasn't a place anymore, but something alive. Aman realized this wasn't about getting out. This tunnel didn't want to let him go. And somewhere inside, he was beginning to understand why only one came back. Aman ran. He didn't look back. The shadow behind him was gaining, moving without sound but fast, too fast. The tunnel felt like it was closing in, walls tightening, the air getting thinner with every step. His flashlight was barely flickering now, but enough to see that the tracks beneath him were starting to twist, like they were bending away from where he was headed. Still, he ran. He had no idea where he was going, but something inside told him to keep moving forward, to not stop no matter what. Then, just when his legs began to give out, he saw it, a faint light ahead. Warmer than before. Not like the strange flickers he'd seen earlier. This one looked real. Like daylight. He sprinted toward it, pushing past the fear, past the voice still whispering his name in the distance. As he reached the light, everything around him suddenly went silent. The dragging stopped. The cold lifted. And then nothing. He opened his eyes, lying just outside the tunnel entrance. The morning sun was rising. Birds were chirping. The world looked normal again. He was alone, covered in dirt and sweat, shaking, but alive. No sign of Zaid, Horace, or Denial. Just the car parked exactly where they'd left it, doors closed, untouched. It was as if nothing had ever happened. Aman called the police, reported everything. Search teams were sent. Days passed, but no trace of the other three was ever found. Their phones, their voices on the last video, none of it made sense. No physical evidence inside the tunnel. Authorities called it a missing persons case. Aman was the only witness, the only survivor. Months later, he stopped talking about it. Friends drifted away. No one really knew what to believe. Until one day, while going through his own phone, he found a video he didn't remember recording. It was from inside the tunnel. The camera shaking, his own voice whispering, Only one of us can leave. But he never said that. And in the reflection of the tunnel wall in the background, there were 4 shadows, not 3. Aman stared at the video on his phone, not blinking. His hands were cold, his breathing shallow. The voice in the clip was definitely his, but he had no memory of saying those words. And the shadows, that 4th figure, it didn't belong. It was taller, distorted, and standing just behind the others. Somehow, even in the silence of his room, he could feel the same heaviness from the tunnel creeping back, the same weight pressing against his chest like it never really left.
He deleted the video, or at least tried to.
Every time he erased it, it came back. A different timestamp, a new file name, the same footage. Eventually, he stopped trying. He started locking his phone in a drawer at night, but sometimes it would turn on by itself. The screen glowing in the dark, playing that same whisper. Only one of us can leave. He moved away from the city a few months later. Left everything behind. The friends, the places, the memories. People called it trauma, survivor's guilt, imagination. He let them believe whatever they wanted. But deep down, he knew something else had left that tunnel with him. It didn't follow him in a way people could see, but he felt it. In shadows that stayed too long. In reflections that didn't quite match. In the way he sometimes woke up in the middle of the night, certain he wasn't alone. As for the tunnel, it was sealed off again. No official reason. Some said structural damage, others said safety concerns. But Aman knew the truth. Whatever was in there didn't want to be found. It wanted to be remembered. Years later, when he finally shared his story, it wasn't for attention. It wasn't for answers either. It was a warning that not all lost places are abandoned. Some are waiting, watching, listening. And if you ever come across a tunnel hidden deep in the woods, untouched for years, no lights, no sound, don't go in. Because only one came back. And some doors, once opened, never truly close.